Ah, vanilla. There's nothing quite like it. Even just talking about it, I struggle to form my thoughts into sentences to truly convey how I feel about the game. Innumerable adventures, ups and downs, highs and lows, and made countless friends in the process. The game, in its state between 2004 and 2006, is a gem that I truly treasure. So what happened? World of Warcraft saw a meteoric rise at the end of vanilla, and continued to gain popularity through the Burning Crusade. In Wrath of the Lich King, the subscriber base swelled to a massive 12 million subscribers. It was an absolutely unstoppable juggernaut, one that spurned copy after copy after copy, all claiming to be the one to dethrone the king. Many tried, many failed. The general consensus among gamers at the time was no competitor will ever be able to capture the proverbial lightning in a bottle that WoW had managed to do so well. A common phrase heard at the time was, no game's ever going to be able to kill WoW. The only thing to kill WoW is WoW. Nobody thought much of it at the time, but they had no idea how right they were. Towards the end of Wrath, subscriptions began to decline. Despite being a fantastic expansion overall and widely praised by the community, Wrath of the Lich King was the beginning of the end of World of Warcraft's reign. The decline continued through subsequent expansions. Cataclysm literally upended most of the zones from the original game. In an attempt to breathe new life into what was seen as outdated content, we saw the event known as the Sundering. Deathwing the Destroyer, one of the 5 leaders of the Black Dragonflight, was roused from his slumber far within Deepholm. His emergence drastically changed the landscape from what we're all familiar with. Towns burned, dams fell, and entire zones were scarred beyond recognition. This was a turning point in the game for me. So many of these zones that I had spent so much of my life and so much of my playtime in, Camp Tarajo, Mirage Raceway, the Silver Pine Forests, as I knew it, gone forever. And with it, the emotional connections I had made to the game. Still, I soldiered on. This was World of Warcraft after all. This was my game. I thought, even the best games evolve and change over their lifetime. Mists of Pandaria came next and was considered a creative success. While it wove compelling narratives, it failed to engage players for a significant length of time, myself included. I subscribed for new content, quickly got bored, and unsubscribed. I continued this revolving door type of play until the end of the expansion. The next expansion, Warlords of Draenor, was considered by many to be the worst one to date, a sentiment that seemed to be subtly echoed by Blizzard themselves, for when the first time ever, they stopped publicly reporting subscription numbers. If that's not telling, I don't know what is. We also saw the introduction of several ancillary systems that ended up detracting from the overall game experience. The follower and mission boards were uninspired busywork and did nothing to enhance your enjoyment of the game. The garrison system, a side effect of the genre's burning obsession with player housing at the time, made the world feel incredibly empty. Instead of trudging into the hustle and bustle of your faction's capital city, you instead sat by yourself in your garrison, with nearly every vendor or NPC you would ever need merely a few steps away. The game turned into a boring amalgamation of mobile-esque mini-games, a clear indicator that the bigwigs at Activision were flexing their influence. Combine this with the fact that Warlords of Draenor had only one notable content patch over its lifetime, it's easy to see why this expansion is widely hated among the community. When Legion launched, it mended a lot of animosity in the community. The class halls injected a new flavor into the game, giving each class its own identity again. The multitude of legendaries gave people something to strive for, but in the end, the expansion failed to recreate the popularity the game once had. It leaves us in the situation we're here today. Battle for Azeroth marks a new low for the franchise as a whole. Rewarding and challenging content have been replaced by time-gated RNG mechanics. Artifact power replaced with Azerite power. Tier sets replaced with Azerite armor. Systems bolted onto systems, bolted onto systems, bolted onto systems. The RPG elements that made the game so addictive and made that gameplay loop so awesome were replaced by casino-type games. Games that prey on the human inclination for the fear of missing out or the sunk cost fallacy. Gone are the miles-deep RPG elements and flavor, and have been replaced by a collage of systems designed to manipulate your brain and think if you don't do this right now, you're going to be left behind. You're playing the game because the brain tells you you have to, not because you want to. It's depressing, sad, and as much as it pains me to say, Battle for Azeroth is the first expansion where I couldn't even bring myself to reach max level. It didn't engage me, excite me, or interest me in any meaningful way. Playing Battle for Azeroth for me was like attending the funeral of a cherished old friend. This was the status quo for the World of Warcraft, and I couldn't see myself taking part of it anymore. And I thought to myself, after 15 years of playing this game, that this is where my tenure as a WoW player would end. Or was it?
Classic WoW.
Classic WoW.
Vanilla frickin' WoW.
Classic World of Warcraft.
Vanilla WoW.
Classic.
Classic. Classic World of Warcraft.
WoW Classic. Classic WoW.
Vanilla World of Warcraft.
Classic.
Classic WoW.
We're going home, boys. Somehow
You think you do, but you don't.
turned into,
We hear you.
and I couldn't be happier. Blizzard is going to provide us with the opportunity to revisit the times and places that we've missed so much. Watching all these fantastic YouTubers, Tips Out, Mad Season, Frostradamus, Nixium, Hamster Wheel, so many more has had me frothing with anticipation. We're on the cusp of a veritable World of Warcraft renaissance, a return to our roots, and I'm not sure any of us are ready for it. I fully plan on completely immersing myself in this game that hooked me 15 long years ago. The only difference being, I plan to share as much of this journey as possible with all of you guys. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, guys. There's a large demographic of people, include those playing Battle for Azeroth, that think Classic is a terrible idea. You'll hear a lot of these critic buzzwords being thrown around like rose-tinted glasses, or nostalgia, or resurrecting a dead fantasy. All those claims are 100% horseshit, and I'll tell you why. This is a common trope I hear almost daily. The idea that people pushing for Classic have no idea how it was back then, or we overly romanticize it to the point where it's being unrealistic. Oh, wow, it was a chore back then. Take off your rose-tinted glasses. Or everyone had crap computers, and nobody knew how to play the game, and everyone was bad. People will destroy the content the day that it's released. These would be all valid points if it wasn't for one thing: private servers. How can you claim someone is suffering from nostalgia sickness when they could have very well logged off from their private server 5 minutes ago? How can you accuse people of not remembering the game how it was, when there's literally hundreds and thousands of people playing it right now? Sure, private servers aren't 100% accurate, numbers may be different, encounters may be bugged, it's going to vary from server to server. But the chores that people claim the Classic fans don't remember? No mount until 40, buying your own skills, nerfed XP, enemy damage and HP, weapon skills, grinding mobs, dungeon attunements, forming your own groups, all work like a charm. People are experiencing these things right now. Not because they're an inconvenience or a chore, because they're part of the vanilla experience. They love to say people had no idea what they're doing. But in 2009, in a 15-year-old game, there's still people to this day who have no clue what they're doing, whether it be on a private server or in retail. There's always going to be people that are standing in fire. There's always people that still don't know what a rotation is, or min-max is, or what an optimal spec was. The only difference in vanilla, if you didn't know what you were doing, you had to adapt. On retail, you don't have to know what you're doing. The game practically plays itself. Push button, receive loot. As critics continue to beat this nostalgia trope into the ground, it's going to carry less and less relevance as time goes on. To the critics, I want to offer up a couple points to maybe sway your ideas a little bit. All of the things that make Classic so good, or all the things that the retail game lacks. Let me give a couple examples. This can be a multifaceted concept, but the game overall lacks any meaningful incentive. Now, incentive can mean meaningful loot. You do a quest, run a dungeon, kill a boss, or anything that requires overcoming a challenge. Getting a chance for good loot is a huge incentive. Now, you have to be living under a rock to be aware of the whole Warforged, Titanforged debacle, and how it completely negates any incentive to acquire loot. When you have to overcome the RNG of getting the piece you need, and then battle the increased RNG on top of it just to get a tiny incremental loot increase, it boils down to getting gear into a glorified slot machine. It's unfulfilling, contrived, and just not fun. What happened to the dark edge of insanity? or the Untamed Blade. Give us something meaningful to shoot for, something to show off, something that makes us feel more powerful, not just something that has slightly higher numbers than the one we're currently wearing. Make loot more fun and interesting, and then the game in turn becomes more fun and interesting. We can also discuss incentive in a more of a abstract fashion. That's the incentive to improve as a player. Now, Preach did a fantastic video on incentive. I'll link it in the description below. And as you can see, in the game currently, the game gives you little incentive to improve. When everything in the game is handed to you with little to no effort, whether you're a good player or a trash player, what incentive is there to get better at the game? Preach ran an experiment just to see how much of the game in its current iteration holds your hand. He took it to the most extreme for the sake of his video. He literally gimped his own spec. He used a crap rotation. He was a rogue and he didn't even use poisons. He neglected to use a lot of the important abilities from his toolkit to try to simulate the playing style of, well, a bad player. One would think that if you played the game purposely badly, you wouldn't progress very far. Wrong. Not only did he run dungeon after dungeon this way, people didn't even say a thing. People were flying through the instances so quickly anyway, more often than not, when they get to the end, they didn't even realize what happened. He did dungeon after dungeon this way, getting his eye level to the point where he could actually queue in the LFR system. Not only did his purposely bad gear strategy get him through the raid, there were people doing even less damage than he was, and nobody said a word. The only way he could get a reaction out of someone was picking a random DPS to auto-follow an AFK, and still managed to clear half the raid before anybody noticed. This demonstrates the clear lack of any compelling challenge to overcome. If you haven't heard the cat string theory before, it pretty much summarizes the World of Warcraft in its current state. If you dangle a piece of string just out of the reach of a cat, it will do everything it can to try to get to that string. It'll go crazy to try to get it. On the other hand, if you just drop the string at the cat's feet, it'll lose interest almost instantly. Getting purples handed to you left and right is cool for about 10 minutes, but after a while it just feels like you're playing with cheat codes. Where's the fun in that? Now, it's no doubt that WoW's development team is absolutely massive. The game has been Blizzard's golden goose since its conception, although that distinction seems to be slipping as of late. The thing is, the development team for Classic WoW was a measly number in comparison to the live team, a small select group of driven individuals to recreate the vanilla experience. Exact numbers are hard to pin down, but some Reddit posts have managed to science out that the development team could be as small as 5 people. 5! That's just a tiny fraction of WoW's live team, but has the potential to nearly double the subscriber base. Over 1 million projected subscribers from the work of just about 5 people. You have to be completely delusional that you think Classic won't be another cash cow for Activision Blizzard, and one that essentially defibrillates the game in the current state, which in my opinion is on life support. Let's not get it twisted though. We're not getting Classic WoW because everybody at Activision's hearts grew 3 sizes that day. No, they did it for one reason, and one reason only. Money. They know money much more than they know games, and having to pony up legal fees to sue every private server into the Shadow Realm, I'm sure, forced their hand. Is this a complaint? Not at all. For once, the inclination of corporations to funnel in money in any way possible actually worked out to our advantage this time. More money for Activision Blizzard means more money for the franchise. More money for the franchise means more money for new expansions, patches, and even new games. I think we can all agree that this is for everybody's benefit. Classic players and retail players alike. Now, this is really just theory crafting at this point, but it kind of begs to be discussed. You have to be very deluded to think Classic isn't going to open up Blizzard's eyes to how far the game has slipped from its roots. Like it or not, it's going to be a huge success for Blizzard, and in my opinion, I think it's going to be so much of a success that Blizzard will contemplate creating a fork in the story arc and be able to develop new content on the back end of Classic. It's a chance for redemption and to right wrongs, and I don't think there's a single WoW player who doesn't think that would be an awesome possibility. What if we never went through the Dark Portal? What if we never made it to Outland, and to Northrend? What if a new story is created we all get to experience it together, with the core mechanics of the vanilla experience traveling right along with us? As a longtime Warcraft fan, it opens up multiple avenues for the development team to please the Classic purists, the retail players, and the new players as well. I know I'm putting the cart before the proverbial horse. I mean, we don't even have a release date for Classic, but it's still cool to think about, and I hope it's something Blizzard considers in the future. So what do you guys think? I know this video is kind of unstructured and scattered. When I talk about vanilla, my brain tends to go off on tangents if you didn't notice. I'm sure you understand. Can you think of more reasons for the WoW community as a whole to come together and embrace Classic? Or are you still against it? Leave a comment below, let me know what you're thinking. As far as content for my channel goes, I'm looking forward to making some dungeon guides to prepare people for vanilla. Which would you guys like to see? I'm thinking about some high-level dungeons, maybe Lower Blackrock Spire, Skullomance, Strathholm, OBRS, but I'm open to some lobby dungeons too. Stick around guys, it's going to be a blast. If you like this video, drop me a like. Hit that subscribe button. Be sure to enable notifications so you can see when I make new videos. And as always guys, I am Skunk Monkey, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Peace!